everyone, welcome to our 2014 Game of the Year Awards. Steven and I are going to count down to our number one favorite game of 2014. And as always, we have a lot of fun with this, so let's begin. Coming in at number 10 for me is a game that almost won my Game of the Year, I believe it was last year, was The Last of Us. This time it's The Last of Us remastered for the PlayStation 4. I thought this was a brilliant game. I loved the remaster, I loved the original, and the reason why it comes in, I guess you could say, so low this year is the fact that, well, it technically is just a remaster, but since the game is so fantastic, it had to make my list, and all the other games on this list were new, so yeah, that's my number 10.
For me, my number 10 will be a bit of a surprise because a lot of people didn't even consider this a full game, but it is Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. And it took me by surprise because I waited a bit to finally buy it. I saw your review and I saw all the reviews and everybody said that the gameplay was pretty cool, but wasn't really a full game. And I agree with that. It's just that I had so much fun playing the game with my friend who's a hardcore Metal Gear Solid fan. And we played that game for hours and hours and hours trying to get all those little achievements and doing extra stuff like that, and just actually enjoyed playing a stealth game. And even though I like the Metal Gear Solid series a lot, I usually don't play those games very stealthily. But in this version, for some reason, I really enjoyed the stealth gameplay. So that's why Ground Zeroes comes at number 10. And coming at number 9 for me is an Xbox One and PC exclusive, which came in the beginning of 2014, which is Titanfall. And it's one of the best multiplayer shooter experience I've played so far. It's really kind of a mix of Call of Duty, but factor that with like double jumps and like superhero powers, kind of, just because of the mech gameplay and wall jumping. And it's really something I've never experienced before and was incredibly addictive to play online. And sadly, I didn't have many friends who played it, so I did stop playing a bit short, but Titanfall still comes at number 9 because it's just fantastic to play.
My number 9 is a game that scared the living crap out of me. It's the only horror game that's on my list, and that is Alien Isolation. It has been a very long time since I played a game like, well, just a game in general that really managed to creep me out. And the fact that I never felt safe, that I was constantly being hunted down, I don't know, I was so impressed, and I still say, if you like the Alien franchise, you have got to play Alien Isolation. And for my number 8, it is a, well, spin-off to the Legend of Zelda series. It is Hyrule Warriors. This was a game that I thought I wasn't really going to enjoy. I thought it was going to be okay at best, and it ended up actually blowing my mind. And I was a huge fan of it. I like blasted through it in, a couple of sittings. And I just love the fact that it's continuously growing. Even now, there's DLC getting released, and it was just such a huge fan homage that I really loved it.
At number 8 for me, it won't be complicated. It is also Hyrule Warriors, and for all the reasons you've said, I just thought it was a great homage to the Zelda series. It had so many playable characters and so many features from the series we've come to love, and it was just a fantastic package simply made to please the fans, and it did its job perfectly, and that's why Hyrule Warriors is on my list. And at number 7, I actually had to check beforehand to make sure this game was actually released in 2014, and it turns out that it was, and that is Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. It actually came out at the end of January, and I had not experienced the original Tomb Raider, not the original one, but the Tomb Raider, the reboot, and I thought this was a fantastic Uncharted-style game. also a game that I had friends over and just could not stop playing for hours and hours at a time until we finished it. And it's just one of the most epic adventures I've ever played. And it's simply a must-play. If you own an Xbox One or PS4 and you haven't checked out the reboot yet, that's definitely a must-buy in my book. So that's why Tomb Raider Definitive Edition is number 7.
My number 7 is a Vita game, which really surprised me. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, and I actually just did a review on it, and that is Freedom Wars. And it's so high on my list because it blew my mind. I actually brought my Vita to work, which I haven't done in a very, very long time, in order to play this bad boy. And then when I got home, I would put it in my PlayStation TV and continue where I left off. And just overall, just an amazing game. It's sort of like a Monster Hunter clone type thing, but just really done well. A lot of customization options, and it's just really heavy emphasis on action. And I was completely blown away. Did not expect that whatsoever. So that's why Freedom Wars is my number 7. And my number 6 is a PC game that I covered in the beginning of the year, and it's a Panzer Dragoon style game. It's a shooter called Astabreed. This was actually recommended to us from someone who was watching the channel and was like, oh, you guys should really check this game out. And so it was on sale, I believe, part of a Steam sale or something like that, and I checked it out and I fell in love with it. I thought it was just brilliant. And it has a lot of horizontal shooter elements, vertical shooter elements, and then Panzer Dragoon shooter elements. So all around, if you if you like shooters, Astabreed is one you should definitely check out.
For my number 6, it is Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. I really can't wait to make my review on this game because it's something I have a lot to say about. It's really an awesome Pokemon remake. It's not quite as good as the last remakes, which were Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but it's one of the most visual Pokemon game I've yet played. I love the fact that they use cinematic camera angles to tell its storyline, and some of the scenes are just really breathtaking to look at. And they've added some new Pokemon Mega Evolutions and some new items here and there to keep the hardcore Pokemon fans interested, and the Hoenn region is one of my favorite ones to explore. I simply adore diving underwater and exploring the sea. So for those reasons and many more, Pokemon Alpha Sapphire is my number 6 best game of 2014. And at number 5, it's Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. And that's a no-brainer for me. I really like the Smash Brothers series, and something that took me by surprise is the Amiibo. The Amiibo compatibility with Smash Brothers is really something that's really addictive, and I never really thought I would spend much time with it. And just the fact that it has over 45 playable characters, a lot of levels, and it can be played online, it's just a fantastic was going to say GameCube title, but a fantastic Wii U title, and one that every Wii U owner should own.
Well, coming in at number 5 for me is another game I just recently reviewed, and that is Far Cry 4. This is an open world game that's completely ridiculous, and I had no expectations for this game, I think, whatsoever. And it ended up just being one of these games where I just could not stop playing. I just kept going back. Any free moment I had, I would even kick Serena off the TV so that I could get another hour or so in. I mean, there's something about riding on an elephant with a flamethrower that's just completely ridiculous. Or even better, being grappled to a gyrocopter with a flamethrower on an elephant. I mean, it's just totally insane. And I know a lot of people had issues with the storyline and things like that, but I don't know, I found the characters connected. It was a little bit predictable, but I think the gameplay in that open world setting just was really, really fun. And ultimately, that is why I play video games, which you're about to find out with my rest of my list here. So at number 4 is going to be 2 games in one. And the reason why I'm doing this is because they're modeled after one another. And that is Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and for the 3DS. And the only reason I combine these two is because I find you can really go back and forth between the two seamlessly. And the fact that, like Steven just mentioned before, that we've got Amiibo integration now with the Wii U version. They're going to be updating, I believe. I'm not sure if they're going to actually update the 3DS version or not to allow for Amiibo integration, but it doesn't matter. The fact that I was not into this series prior to these 2 games getting released, and the fact that they come in at number 4 says a lot. I've been playing a lot of these games with friends and just by myself over the last, month, I guess, since they've been released. They're just utterly fantastic games on either one. You can take either one. They're brilliant games. So that's 2 games in one for my number 4.
For my number 4, it's a really surprise entry that I just got into recently, and that game is Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. I've been playing this pretty much every night now with my girlfriend, and we're just having such a blast with this game. It's a simple, charming video game, but there's something that it has that I can't really put my finger on it, but it's so much fun to play, and I just love the charming visuals, and it was one of my favorite mini games that was featured in Super Mario 3D World, so I'm really glad that they made a full game out of this. And so far, I'm not even done with this game yet, and I feel fully confident putting it on number 4 because it keeps making me want to play it, and it's one of those surprise hits of 2014 in my book. And at number 3, I have another remake. After Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, I have Last of Us Remastered. And really comes at no surprise. This was a game I really put high on my list in 2013. But I think 2 days after Last of Us Remastered was released, I had completed the New Game Plus. And I remember that because I texted one of my good friends who's a used PlayStation fan, and he was surprised that I was already on my New Game Plus file when it was only released like a few days. It's just because I could not stop playing this game, and that was a game I had already played the year before, and it's just so good to go back and revisit that game and just find out a few things that you might not have noticed the first time around or the second time around, and you just every time you play it, you notice something new. That's what I like about this game. I also really like the upgraded visuals, and yeah, Last of Us is a classic, no matter what system you play it for, and that's why it's on my list at number 3.
All right, so coming in at number 3 is a game I have yet to have a chance to review. Got a whole bunch of gameplay footage for you guys, but I'm most likely only going to get around to actually reviewing this bad boy sometime in January, and that is Bayonetta 2. This is an amazing action game, and if you like Devil May Cry or games like that, go out and buy a Wii U just for Bayonetta 2. I know it's not going to be for everyone, but if you are one of those that likes Twitch gameplay, that loves action games, Bayonetta 2 is a phenomenal game. And the only reason I haven't reviewed it is because it just keeps getting more and more insane the further I progress. So I want to be able to show you guys some of that madness. And my number 2 game is, you can tell where my heart really lies. It's a retro-themed game, and it's Shovel Knight. This was actually a Kickstarter-funded game, and it is a friggin' blast. It takes elements from Super Mario Bros. 3, from DuckTales, from classic Capcom games from way back when, and it molds them all together into this just incredible retro-inspired game, but it doesn't feel like a Me Too. It does enough new to break out on its own, and it just floored me, and I still think this is one of the best indie releases of all time. If you have It's available on, I think, any number of systems, so just check. But I just highly recommend you go check out Shovel Knight. That's my number 2.
The funny thing about my number 2 is that I could probably do a 10-minute video saying all the flaws I have with the game and all the things I wish they would have done better with the series and the game itself. But I can't kid myself. Mario Kart 8 is one of the best times I've had this year. I still play this game today, and when it came out, we played it every single night. And it's one of those games that even the girlfriend can play. And that's something that's rare. Like I mentioned before with Camped at Dome, the girlfriend doesn't really like video games, but those for somehow don't count as video games to her, and we're just having a good time. And it's one of those games where you can invite friends over and play till the early hours of the morning. So it's amazing game. I really like the DLC too. It makes the game last even longer, and there's more DLC planned, I think, at the beginning of next year. So Mario Kart 8 has all the right features and one of the best games of 2014. No doubt about it. And for my number 1 game of 2014, which I believe will be the same one as you, unless you forgot about it, which is pretty possible, it is South Park, The Stick of Truth, or South Park Stick of Truth, whatever. I don't remember if there's a D in the subtitle, but it doesn't matter. This is just one that came out of nowhere. I actually had no clue this was coming out, and you told me all about it, and I went and picked it up the same day and just couldn't stop playing until I finished the main story, and it was simply amazing. And was it this? I forgot who the developer of this game is. It was, I believe, the ones. Well,
it was Obsidian.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just one of those games that takes. It follows, like, I think they were responsible for KOTOR 2, if I remember right, and they took some of those story decisions and they put them into South Park. It also follows the cartoon very closely. You can pretty much see all the locations from the classic show in there. It also has the pretty much battle system largely inspired by Paper Mario, so it's really interactive and it's not really boring. There's no grinding at all. And it's probably the funniest video game I've ever played. I was laughing out loud every single few minutes. So it's just one of those great experiences that I wish I could experience all over again. It's one of those games that when you finish it, you just hope you could erase your memory and start all over again. And that's why South Park Stick of Truth is my number 1 game of 2014.
And my number 1 game of 2014, apparently I need to start these lists because I don't remember what we did last year, but we both said that The Legend of Zelda: Link Between Worlds was our number 1 game. And well, this year, yes, damn you, South Park, The Stick of Truth was my number 1 game.
I'm really surprised you didn't forget about it since it was just an early release.
Yeah, well, so was Astabreed. Just so everybody knows, what I did this year was I actually had a pad of paper, and on the very first page of that pad of paper, I put top games of 2014, and as I was playing games, I added, and I had around 16 games on the list. And before Steven said, like, okay, let's do this list, I went through and was like, no, this is better than that, this is better than that, cross off a few, and I was like, well, here you go. And so, yeah, I mean, I could say all the exact same things as you have to say, which is to say that this was one of the funniest games I've ever played, and it was, like, the gameplay was actually really good. I thought it was just going to be, like, whatever, but it turns out that I believe this is the best licensed property game ever made. It's just absolutely hysterical, and it fits the show perfectly. It had great gameplay, and just all around was a fantastic game. Now, there were 2 other games I wanted to talk about. Now, I'm just going to keep the footage going for South Park because this was our winner, so it deserves the spotlight here. But there were 2 other games there was one in particular that I really enjoyed, but I haven't had a chance to get too far in it yet, and that's Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. That is a fantastic game, and I'm pretty sure it would bump a game or 2 off this list. Well, not 2, but it would bump a game off this list if I could just invest a little more time with it, because I've really been enjoying my time with it, but I haven't invested enough time to really, it's not fair on the others. And the other one was Bravely Default. That's another one that I'm pretty sure would be on this list, but I just have not had a chance to devote to a JRPG or an RPG in general other than South Park. So do you have any others, honorable mentions, I guess you could say?
Well, besides, there's just a few games that almost made the list but did not, and that is Evil Within, which I really enjoyed, and Shadow of Mordor, which I've talked about in a previous podcast, which I thought was amazing, but they just weren't able to make the top 10. I think 2014 was a pretty good year, so that's why I didn't make the top 10, and I'm also right there with you. I had Bravely Default in my 3DS downloaded since it came out. Never actually played it, which is funny because when you look at that little app in your 3DS that shows how many hours you have, it shows that I've played 13 hours of the demo, but 0 minutes of the actual game, so that's really crazy. And Donkey Kong, same thing. I played the first level, said, wow, this is good, I'll come back to it, and never did. Just sad.
It is sad. And with that, we say goodbye to 2014, and I say bring on 2015, damn it, because this upcoming year should prove to be quite interesting, especially if one of my favorite franchises makes its return with Uncharted 4. Should be very interesting to see what comes out on top for 2015. So thanks everyone for joining us, and well, we'll see you next year.